What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. This time it is another NASCAR weekly edition preview, predictions, updates, all that fun stuff. Going into week one of the playoffs, they are finally here for NASCAR. The next 10 weeks are all playoff races. So let's get down and preview this week's race at Darlington and look at some of the playoff things in regards to the playoffs. As always, storylines. Blaney, great super speedway racing at the end there to quickly work his way through the field, get to victory lane, and get to second in points. It was a month ago where Ryan Blaney was sixth and far back. And it's like, well, he's probably maybe can get to fifth, but not that much farther. Well, after his win, he is now in second place. So not only is he getting the 5 playoff points for winning the race, but he also will be getting 10 extra points for finishing there in the regular season. Blaney's coming into the playoffs super hot. And don't forget, he won the championship just 2 years ago in 2023. It could be just whoever gets hot at the right time, just like a lot of other sports. And thank goodness Ryan Blaney won because it saved everybody from all the playoff discussions about, do we need to get rid of the playoffs? Which, yes, you guys, if you've been listening long enough, know that I think the way the playoffs are set up currently and the way it works are stupid. It's dumb, and it's not a great representation of what motorsports in general are supposed to be. You look at all the motorsports across the world, NASCAR is the only one that does some of the things that it does. And that's not always a good thing. Sometimes it is, but not always. So thank goodness Ryan Blaney won and just saved everybody from having those discussions. And some of the guys that were racing up front with him at the end of the race didn't win, guys like Justin Haley and Cole Custer. The playoffs are finally here, as I already mentioned. Very interesting group of tracks. We have start with Darlington, go to Gateway, and then go to Bristol as the cutoff race from 16-12. That is an interesting group of 3 tracks, but not an easy group of tracks either. Darlington and Bristol are known for how tough they are. And Gateway can be tough. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting group. The next round of the playoffs, the round of 12, I think could be max chaos with the road course and some of the other stuff there. But I don't know. I mean, Darlington technically is an intermediate. Gateway is 1.25 miles. Bristol is a short track. So I think this is going to play into the hands of some of the classic NASCAR drivers, the guys who excel at typical NASCAR tracks, more than it's going to play into some of the more chaos reliant drivers. But anyway, last crown jewel event of the season, Southern 500, Labor Day weekend. It's one of the only, maybe the only Sunday night race on the NASCAR schedule. I guess the Daytona 500, part of that's because it's a long race, but the Southern 500 from Darlington, the Lady in Black, last crown jewel event of the season. Last year, Chase Briscoe won this crown jewel event to lock himself into the playoffs. It was a win to get in situation, and he did it. Whoever wins it this year will be locking themselves into the round of 12 if it's a playoff driver. It could be a non-playoff driver. Remember the uniqueness of motorsports, particularly NASCAR, having the playoffs. Yeah, you have 16 playoff drivers, but there's 20 other drivers on any given week that also want to win and also have motivation to win. So I'm interested in what racing is going to look like this week. There's been a lot of talk on different types of tracks about not being able to pass and how much dirty air there is. Then you see Richmond, they changed the tire compound, which Richmond and Darlington aren't necessarily similar. But I want to see if the racing is good this week, if guys are able to pass, if tires make a difference, how much air blocking. I guess with the next gen car, there's always going to be loads of air blocking, but I think you can get the point of what I'm trying to say across here. Who is the championship favorite? And 7 kind of ties in here. It kind of feels wide open. Normally you're saying Kyle Larson, William Byron, those guys are always at the top. They're the 1 and 2 seeds. They're tied for the most playoff points. Ryan Blaney's coming in super hot. He's won the championship. He's got to be a favorite. Denny Hamlin, if not now, then when, right? Always one of the best drivers. Always wins a whole bunch of races in years. and always seems to be one of the best drivers, but he still has not found that championship at the age of 44, almost 45 years old. So who's the favorite? I don't really know because the playoffs feel so wide open. Normally, and you're going to see in a minute. Normally, in the first round, there's drivers that are 40, 50 points to the good because they've had such a dominant regular season. There's like a handful of them, and they can almost handle a bad finish in the first round and be okay. That's not the case this year. It's a lot closer this year than I think it ever really has been with this playoff format. One bad race for anybody can send them home, and that hasn't always been the case, especially in the first round. These playoffs feel wide open because so many drivers have a really good 1 month or 2 month stretch and then disappear for 6 weeks. And that's kind of been a lot of people, or they're hot for 3 weeks, cold for 2 weeks, hot for 3 weeks. So because of all that, I think these playoffs feel incredibly wide open. And who really knows who has the best opportunity to advance and win the championship? I think, as I said with Ryan Blaney, it might just come down to the right driver getting hot at the right time. History at Darlington in the next gen. I was talking about non-playoff drivers winning. That happened in 2022 here with Eric Jones not being in the playoffs and picking up a win at Darlington. However, the rest of the winners, Logano, Byron, Larson, Keselowski, Briscoe, and Hamlin, that's 6 winners at Darlington in the next-gen car. 7 different winners in total, but 6 of those 7 different winners at Darlington are currently in the playoffs. So, if there's plenty of playoff drivers who have proven they can win on this track in the next gen. Most of them, though, are the drivers with good teams that are known to be fast and have won races, right? So, we'll see. I do think not everybody's fast at Darlington in the playoffs. Not all drivers are fast at Darlington, period. Remember, it is a tough oval. But there's 6 playoff drivers that have won at Darlington in the next gen car. However, there hasn't been a repeat winner at Darlington. So do we get another individual winner this weekend? Best average finish at Darlington, William Byron with a 9.1, Christopher Bell right behind him with a 9.6, Denny Hamlin with a 10.3, Tyler Reddick with a 10.7, and Joey Logano with an 11th place average finish. Really, really close. The top 5 best average finishes are only separated by 1.9, so less than 2, right around 2 average finishing positions. And again, it's a lot of the big name drivers that are arguably in championship contention year in and year out with those best average finishes. Now, remember, there's only 3 races in the round of 16, so at most 3 drivers will clinch their way in with a win, and that means that 9 drivers will point their way in. So sometimes just having a good finish, riding around in 5th, collecting stage points, and having a solid finish is going to be enough for 9 drivers, at least theoretically. Most top 5s at Darlington, Tyler Reddick by himself with 4 top 5 finishes in the next gen. 3 drivers tied at 3, Byron, Bell, and Hamlin. And when you look at the best average finish, it makes sense that it is these guys. And then 7 drivers tied with 2 top 5s, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, Ross Chastain, Chase Briscoe, and Kyle Larson. Again, a lot of playoff contenders on that list. And then you obviously have Harvick, who was retired, but was very good at Darlington, so he's still on some of these stats. Most top 10s, 2 drivers tied at 5 out of 7 races finishing in the top 10 here, William Byron and Tyler Reddick, and then 6 drivers are tied at 4, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher, and Brad Keselowski. So who does that make my favorites to win Darlington? Well, I think Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs are neck and neck at 1 and 2. I think the winner most likely comes from them. Both of those teams are fast here. They have won 3 of the 7 races at this track in the next gen. So, Hendrick and Joe Gibbs, what a shocker, 1-2. Team Penske, usually looked at as that third team, the third top-level team. They have a win here in the next gen. Joe Logano was fast here. Ryan Blaney and Austin Cindric are not. Granted, Ryan Blaney is such a good driver. I think he could be fine and figure out speed this weekend. But like I said, Joe Logano has good stats here. Maybe it will matriculate to Ryan Blaney, especially with how hot he is. But Team Penske always has a good chance to win here. 23XI is right there with Team Penske. I think they're very, very close. It's kind of like Hendrick and Joe Gibbs are 1A, Penske 23XI are 1B, and then RFK is in the second tier. Bubba Wallace has been fast here. Tyler Reddick has been super fast here, especially with 23XI. Maybe Tyler Reddick gets his first win of the season at a really good time. I think both playoff drivers from 23XI have a chance to win this race. Definitely have good point days. And then RFK Racing, they've won here. Buescher and Kozlowski are both fast here. It's a shame RFK didn't have any drivers make the playoffs. They probably should have. That's their expectation. All three drivers were in the top 20 in points. Two of their drivers were top 16. They just couldn't find victory lane, and it ended up costing them. But RFK Racing, man, there's still season left to go. They can still win races, and I think they're going to show up at Darlington with that in mind. Now, individual driver rankings. What drivers do I think have the best chance to win? Denny Hamlin, arguably the best Darlington driver in history, definitely the best Darlington driver in modern history. When you go to Darlington in this modern NASCAR era, Denny Hamlin's got to be your favorite. William Byron and Kyle Larson are both kind of second for me, but William Byron and Kyle Larson both are fast here, both have wins at Darlington, both have come close to winning other races. William Byron, Kyle Larson, both should be contenders here. Christopher Bell, out of all the drivers with a good average finish, the only one without a win. Christopher Bell won the second, third, fourth race of the year. Has not won a points-paying race since. March. Won the All-Star race, but again, that's not a points-paying race. So Christopher Bell still finished okay in points. Still finished good in points, I would even say. Top 5, but needs a win here. I think just to prove to himself and the team that they are still capable of it. Tyler Reddick has been really fast here. Again, the most top 5s, most top 10s in the next gen era at Darlington. If anybody's going to rip that high line, Tyler Reddick's going to rip it. Kyle Larson's going to rip it, right? You look at a lot of these dirt guys, and it's not those dirt guys that are used to looking for grip around the track, ripping the very top wall. No surprise that they're good here. Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, all dirt guys. Chase Briscoe, a little bit lower on the list, a dirt guy. All of them are really, really good at ripping the high line, and I think that has translated to help them be so successful at Darlington. Maybe, Tyler Reddick finds his way to victory lane. The expectation for Tyler Reddick at 23XI is not just making the playoffs, it's being a championship contender. It's winning races, not just one, but probably multiple in a season. Tyler Reddick still hasn't won, and there's only 10 races left. Gotta feel like that's going to change eventually. Darlington could be the place. Joey Logano won the first next-gen race here, the memorable William Byron, Joey Logano contact when Logano put Byron into the wall to pass him for the win. Joey Logano, it's playoffs now. I have it very well documented how Joey Logano will suck all regular season, find a way to win a race, and then all of a sudden the playoffs come on and he just starts winning and playing and finishing really well. Well, these first 3 tracks, I think, play into a lot of Logano's strengths. Joey Logano could have a pretty good first round, and he's, like I said, won at Darlington in the next gen. Joey Logano's got to be one of the favorites. Chase Elliott has been solid here. He's been solid all year. He does need to get some of his momentum back. He has had a couple rough weeks in a row. Let's see if Chase Elliott can get a win here. Definitely can get points. He's been having good finishes all season, so I do expect a good points finish this week out of him. But does he get in the victory lane? Brad Keselowski has won here pretty recently. Locked himself into the playoffs last year and met in the spring race doing it. Can Brad Keselowski say, you know what, I'm not in the playoffs, but I am a 2012 Cup Series champion. I didn't make the playoffs this year like I made them last year. Maybe I want to win and spoil the party. Brad Keselowski's capable of doing it. He's a vet who's been fast at this track. Usually it takes guys with experience to be fast at this track. Look out for Brad Keselowski to be hanging around the top 10. Chase Briscoe, obviously that really memorable win, the last win for Stewart-Haas Racing in last season in this fall race at the Southern 500, holding off Kyle Busch in those closing laps. In better equipment, with equipment that has been fast at Darlington with Joe Gibbs in the 19 car before, and then qualified really well in the spring and then finished 28th, sucked, Don't know what happened with him. Chase Briscoe talks about how this is one of his favorite tracks. I expect a much better Chase Briscoe. I expect to see the Chase Briscoe of the summer that was routinely collecting stage points and finishing in the top 10, not the one that finished 28th. I think Chase Briscoe, again, won this race last year. He's in better equipment now than he was then. I think that spring finish is more a blip on the radar than it is how fast he's going to be at Darlington in the 19. You know Joe Gibbs is fast with Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell at this track. Chase Briscoe very well could be a contender this week. And then Bubba Wallace quietly is just getting better at a lot of tracks. I think Darlington is one of them. Quietly has had some really good finishes as of late. He's pretty hot. Came into the playoffs pretty hot. Didn't finish great at Daytona, but before that he was racing pretty well. I think maybe Bubba Wallace finds his way to competing for a win and may find his way up front for a little bit. Definitely in contention for a top 10 this week and a good points day, which might be all he needs in the playoffs. Here I'm showing you the final regular season standings so you can see everybody finished. Obviously, William Byron, again, Ryan Blaney made an incredibly late but fast charge up the standings to finish second. William Byron winning the regular season title by 55 points over Ryan Blaney. Kyle Larson third. Chase Elliott fourth. Christopher Bell fifth, and Denny Hamlin sixth. Remember, that 2nd through 6th was super tight coming into the week. And then Denny Hamlin wrecked and had trouble, and then Ryan Blaney ended up winning, and then the rest of the guys kind of fell in the middle. Tyler Reddick was able to hold off Chase Briscoe by 11 points to get an extra playoff point. Briscoe had stage points in the first 2 stages, but then got shucked out and lost track position in the 3rd stage and had a bad finish, where Tyler Reddick was able to nurse his broken car to a better finish than Briscoe, hence why he held him off. Bowman, despite wrecking super early, still 9th in the regular season standings, still made the playoffs, getting 2 extra playoff points. And Chris Buescher didn't make the playoffs, so even though he's top 10 in points, he didn't make the playoffs. So nobody got that extra regular. That nobody is getting that playoff point. Bubba Wallace couldn't run down Chris Buescher for it. Joey Logano couldn't. You can see the rest of the top 20, but really we're in the playoffs now, so the most important thing to note, William Byron, 15 points for winning the regular season. Ryan Blaney, 10 points for finishing second. Larson, 8 playoff points. Elliott, 7. Christopher Bell, 6. Denny Hamlin, 5. Tyler Reddick, 4. Chase Briscoe, 3. Alex Bowman, 2. And again, Chris Buescher's does not matter. So the top 9 drivers there made the playoffs and all got extra points. And as you can see, there's quite a few playoff drivers that you do not even see in the top 20. And I'll leave it at that. Now, here are the current playoff standings. Everybody in blue would be advancing if, as of today, on points, and everybody in red would be missing out on the next round in points. Again, I was telling you guys, you usually have 40s, sometimes even 50 points good to the cut line when you're in the top like 2 or 3 positions. This year, plus 26. There's 2. Byron and Larson are tied at plus 26 on the cut line. That's literally one bad race, and you could be on the wrong side. This is the closest playoffs, I will say, in the history of this format, where literally anybody can go home in theory, round 1. Again, I think that the tracks actually play to a lot of these guys that are higher up in the standings, and it plays to the teams that are most consistently fast, like Hendrick, like Joe Gibbs, like Penske. But theoretically speaking, I think you normally come into the playoffs and you're like, anybody could advance, or these guys are probably going to advance. These guys are most likely to get eliminated. And then you have this middle group that are going to be fighting it out. This year, while like theoretically that still exists, points wise, everybody's separated by 30 points. Like it's a 30-point separation from 1st to 16th. And when you only have a 30-point cushion on every single driver, 26 on the cut line, bad things can happen and you can find yourself missing out. And even Shane Van Gisbergen, yes, he's plus 16. Is he probably going to have the worst average finish this round? Probably, unless somebody wrecks. But is 16 points enough to get him ahead to enough of these drivers? Who knows? But yes, very, very close races all around here. It's going to be tight and interesting. I do think guys like Tyler Reddick and Alex Bowman will find their way to get off the cut line. I don't think I have it included anywhere. If you ask me, after the first after the first 3 races in the first round of cuts, which again in order, Darlington, Gateway, and Bristol, I think the 4 drivers most likely to go home are Josh Berry and Austin Dillon, who are currently below the cut line, and then Austin Cindric and Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, if Van Gisbergen continues his progress on ovals, maybe he scrapes enough points with his cushion to get by. And I honestly don't feel great about picking Josh Berry. Josh Berry has back-to-back top 10s. He has good performances at both Darlington and Bristol, 2 of the 3 tracks here. So Josh Berry quietly could be a really good contender here. I feel confident about Austin Dillon, somewhat confident about Austin Cindric, and I do feel as though Shane Van Gisbergen has not made enough progress on ovals where he is going to clinch a spot in the next round. I just think out of the other drivers that are not those 3, that Josh Berry is the most likely, although I don't love it. That's what I'll say. But here you go. Here is your current playoff standings. Again, super, super tight. Here I have my playoff driver power rankings, my power rankings of the playoff drivers going in to the playoffs. Ryan Blaney right now coming off of a win, hottest driver I would say in NASCAR right now. Ryan Blaney has got to be number 1 on your playoff driver power rankings list, even if he's not the fastest at Darlington. William Byron, your regular season champ, can't be lower than 2. Had an okay night at Daytona. Tied for the most playoff points with the guy who's number 3, Kyle Larson. William Byron has just been, and really, those guys are tied, but I give Byron the edge over Larson because Larson has struggled most of the summer, not all the summer, and Byron has brought consistent speed to pretty much every type of track where Larson hasn't necessarily done that. Denny Hamlin could have been in the top 3, but he finished 6th in the regular season points, and he wrecked. He was the worst finisher out of some of these guys at the top. So Denny Hamlin in 4th. Christopher Bell in 5th. He deserves to be in the top 5, but man, he needs to find some of his early season speed. But Christopher Bell is kind of a perennial championship contender in my eyes. And then Chase Elliott is rounding out the top 6. I do feel like the top 6 have broken away, which is why they're in green. I think your champion is most likely to come from these top 6 drivers. The top 6, I would say, haven't checked them yet, but I would venture to say might be the 6 favorites for the championship this season. Chase Elliott has been Mr. Consistent most of the year. Again, a small blip during the month of August, but I think he'll get right back to it as the playoffs start. Chase Briscoe was really, really hot over the summer, kind of feathered off a little bit, getting caught up in that wreck in Richmond, still was able to rebound to 13th. Had some speed at Daytona, but kind of got shucked out at the end there, leading a line, and wasn't able to make it back to where he was like some other drivers were. So, not too just okay, but not great weeks in a row. But I do think some of these tracks play into his strengths. So I'm leaving Chase Briscoe 7th. Tyler Reddick, 8th. Chase Briscoe and Tyler Reddick, I feel like, are very tight right now. The points show that. Tyler Reddick, I would say, right now, I moved him down to my 1B tier, that yellow tier. Guys who are my favorites to make the second round. Maybe can win a championship, but they're going to have to get hot to do it. And I don't know if they've proven that they can be championship contenders yet. But it wouldn't surprise me if at least one of them snuck their way through to the round of 4. And I put Tyler Reddick there. I think Tyler Reddick is the closest to those top 6. Chase Briscoe is just a little bit hotter than Tyler Reddick, I think, entering the playoffs, which is why I have Briscoe ahead of him. And he has more points. Bubba Wallace in 9th, Ross Chastain in 10th. Those 2 guys are, and even Alex Bowman in 12th, right? They're in that same second tier. I kind of have them close. It's a similar thing to Briscoe and Reddick. They should make it through the first round. That should be their expectation. One of them, mathematically, at least one of them is going to have to go, or a couple of them, assuming all the guys I have in green make it. A couple of them are going to have to go home in the second round when it goes from 12 to 8. And then that third round of 8, maybe one of them makes it through. We'll see. But Bubba and Ross have been a little bit streaky. I think Bubba's been a little bit more consistent, and has more, or I think they might be tied in points. Bubba might have one more than Ross. So I have them in 9 and 10. I have Bowman at 12 even because he's seeded last, which is why I have Joey Logano over him. And you might say, what's this blue? He's the only blue driver. If you haven't listened in, it's because I put Joey Logano on his own little grading scale. Joe Logano twice in both 2022 and 2024 made the playoffs by winning one race, showed some speed, but also showed he was not as fast as he historically has been in those years. And then all of a sudden turns it on in the playoffs and wins the championship because this format's stupid, right? Like Joe Logano, I think, has taken advantage of this format better than any other driver in what is now year 11 of this playoff format. And you just can't count Joe Logano out. Last year, Joe Logano looked really terrible, and was slow so much of the year. He had an average finish of 17.8 by the end of the season, but because of the playoff format, he won a championship, the worst average finish of any champion ever, and his 2022 one is not far behind that. So I kind of put Joey Logano in a field of his own. It is not an even year, which historically it's even year. Joey Logano was really good, 18, 22, 24. Three of the last 4 even years he's won the championship, 2020 obviously being COVID. So maybe this Joey Logano doesn't have it this year, but you can never actually count that team out. And then here you see Shane Van Gisbergen and Josh Berry, Austin Cindric, and Austin Dillon, the guys who I give the lowest percentages to advance through to the next round, even though one of them probably will because that's how the playoffs work. These are all guys that have won their way into the playoffs, but I don't think they're a threat to go that deep, and they're not a threat to win the championship, any of the 4 of them. In my opinion, these guys are the lowest tier, hence why they are the 4 lowest drivers, at least in my opinion. Thank you guys for coming out and listening. I'm excited for NASCAR playoffs. And one thing NASCAR playoffs have always meant that's kind of underrated is that football season's here. College football, week 1. I know week 0 was last weekend, but week 1, a lot of good games this weekend. Let me know if you want me to see some college football comment, or if you want to see some college football content. Let me know. Put it in the comments below. College football starts this weekend. In a week from today, when this video comes out on Thursday, it's NFL. So NFL starting 2 weekends from now. So NASCAR playoffs means football starts, and that's always an underrated advantage, at least in my book, or an underrated thing to look forward to with the NASCAR playoffs. Put in the comments below your favorite to win the championship, your favorite to win this week, and what you think about my power rankings. If you agree with them, if you disagree, if you think I'm stupid, if you think I'm smart, let me know one of those 3 things, 2 of those 3 things, all of them if you care to. So who your favorite for the championship is, who your favorite to win this week, and do you agree or disagree with my thinking on the playoff driver power rankings? Thank you for taking time out of your days, your weeks, and your lives to listen to this episode. Everybody stay safe out there. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Find a couch and watch football this weekend. And then on Sunday, and maybe mix some NASCAR in. Who knows? Peace out.